Welcome to the Empowered Marriage Podcast. My name's Helen Harrison, and my question to you is, would you like a closer, more connected, more intimate relationship with your partner? And if the question is yes, I encourage you to keep listening. Look, I've been in this business for nearly 2 decades, working with couples, helping them with that disconnect that goes on in relationships. It can get quite complicated, can't it? And so how do we bring back that spark that we used to have? So that's what this podcast is about, and equipping you with different ideas, different tools, perhaps looking at your perspective, but just being able to get to a way where you can go from disconnect to connection, where there's closeness, where there's compassion, and where you can get that intimacy back. You know, I really believe that every relationship is a reflection of what's actually going on within ourselves. So every single week, I am going to equip you with practical tools and relationship insights and powerful conversations to perhaps look at yourself differently and also your relationship, so you can build a stronger, healthier, more connected relationship. Anyway, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to stop defensiveness. So we're going to start with a little story. Have you heard of the 3 little piggies? Yes, you would have. So there's 3 little piggies, isn't there? And the first little piggy, he builds his house out of straw. And the big bad wolf comes in and blows the house down. So the walls, or the defensiveness that little piggy put up, got blown away. Let's go to the second little piggy. He built his house out of sticks, a little bit stronger than the straw, but I'm using the concept of the piggies is that's what we do in defensiveness. We put walls up. So anyway, this little piggy, he only had sticks, and so that wasn't overly helpful, was it, in protecting him from the wolf? Let's go to the third little piggy. And as you know, the third little piggy built his house out of bricks. And so these bricks protected him. Great. He didn't get eaten by the wolf. But where I'm going with this, and my take on this, is the walls, yes, did protect him. But also, if we bring it back to you and what's perhaps happening in your relationship, do you put walls up like the third little piggy and harsh concrete around yourself so it walls you off? People build different walls. So really what I'm trying to say is I want you to notice the walls that you build and to understand what's underneath them. And then learning, I think a huge thing is learning how to lower them. So when you can learn how to lower your walls, that then can create more connection and closeness and trust. And predominantly, that's what we're all looking for, isn't it? When you think about it. And when you haven't got that, it affects a lot of things. So, first place I want to go to, my number 1 for being able to, or how to stop the defensiveness, it is crucial to be able to stop it, is to actually notice your walls. So that's having self-awareness. So what is defensiveness? Defensiveness is like a protective response. It's your nervous system is so clever. Your nervous system is trying to keep you emotionally safe. Look, when do we go into defensiveness? It usually happens when we feel criticized, when we feel blamed, when we feel judged, or when we feel understood. So defensiveness can look different for everybody. So try some of this on. Defensiveness can be when, someone's explaining to you or justifying. Defensiveness can look like blaming, counter-attacking, shutting down, stonewalling, going quiet, you withdraw, you avoid, you walk away. Big one for people is they get busy with work, changing the subject. Look, it's so interesting. As I'm speaking these out to you, I can think of different people and myself of when I go into this defensive behaviour. Did you notice that? Changing the subject. That can be a defensiveness. Becoming sarcastic. Defensive humour. Look, I could go on and on and on. But the key message here is, it's awareness always comes before change. So it's being able to notice, okay, I'm noticing I'm becoming defensive. And this is something I write about in my book. I've got a memoir, Inner Wealth, and I talk a lot about self-awareness. For a very large part of my life, I didn't have awareness. I just knew I was sad, mad and glad, and didn't really know how to put a feeling or name a feeling. I remember the very first time seeing a counsellor, sad, mad and glad. And I spent a lot of time in defensiveness. So a really important part of this is having self-awareness. So noticing, this is something I use regularly. Oh, I'm noticing, and I actually speak it out in my relationship. Oh, I'm noticing I'm becoming defensive. And I'm noticing I'm, starting to put a wall up. I don't tend to put a wall up so much these days. Used to a lot of the time, because I didn't have the vocabulary, the language, or even the understanding. All I knew is my nervous system activated, and boof, there I was. So that's the first point I want to make, is notice when you are being defensive and all of those different ideas. Now, again, I'm talking about you and your intimate partner. So that's my number one. Number two, it's looking underneath the wall, or another way to put it is asking yourself, what am I protecting? Or what am I actually arguing about? It's again having the self-awareness to actually self-reflect. What's feeling threatened? What is it that your partner is doing that is creating this defensiveness in you? And so I often, if I am feeling defensive, I will go a layer in, a bit like an onion when you peel your layers back. Okay, is it touching in, okay, I'm not clever enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm feeling criticized, I'm feeling judged. It could be I'm scared of getting it wrong. I feel misunderstood. Okay, you're really reminding me of ... So an important point is your partner may trigger you, and you're living in a fantasy if you think they won't. They will. That's part of being in a relationship. But your defensiveness, your trigger is your responsibility, but also your defensiveness is your responsibility. So it's acknowledging, okay, sometimes my partner's tone is harsh, or sometimes they are critical, or sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're tired and grumpy from work, sometimes they're not their best version. So it's acknowledging that your partner is human. You're living in a fantasy if you think they're going to be this ideal partner and not be human and be some of those things. But when we've got two defensive people, this never creates emotional safety. So someone has to close the conversation. Not close, but slow the conversation down. And so it's noticing your partner perhaps has been critical and it's very real. It's noticing when you're being defensive and being able to name it. The Gottmans, who are, I'd say they're the number one leaders in relationships, they talk about the four horsemen, and they talk about defensiveness being one of the four horsemen. And, it just takes one of you to do it differently to begin to break the cycle. They've got a book out now called Fight Right, I think it's called. It's a good book because it's all about how you do the conflict. Because I've been saying this to years to my couples, the quality of your relationship is how you do conflict. And it's being able to notice, which takes me to, what do you do if I'm defensive all of the time? So if you're defensive all of the time, what's going to happen is your partner is not going to bring anything to you. They're not going to talk about what's worrying them, perhaps the money worries or their health issues or what's happening with a colleague at work. They're not going to share. They're certainly not going to share their relationship concerns with you because they will think, what's the point? And because if you're defensive all the time, that makes it really difficult for them to be able to come to you with anything. So, and that's how emotional distance grows. And, I can get people in my room or online where the emotional distance is really big. In my mind, it's a bit like a stream is a distance, a river, and some couples have an ocean. It's like one's over there in that ocean and then one's over there in that ocean, and they're trying to find an equal or a standing where they can connect, but they don't even have the dialogue. And so it's when I have a couple like that, we get back to absolute basics in that we look at the four horsemen, the Gottman's four horsemen. And actually, if you'd like a copy of my relationship guide around that, I can send you that. Just give me your details. And with that, when there's such a big distance, we've got to go very, very gently because we've got to start dialogue. I sometimes help couples just get to a place where they can be more friends first because so much has happened between them that they really don't even know how to talk to each other. They're both defensive, and that's really, really, really difficult. And so coming back to, if you're being defensive, it's, okay, first of all, notice, I'm being defensive. Can we just slow this down, please? I really want to hear what you got to say. It's important. But I'm just noticing about this. I'm noticing this within me. Can you help me understand? Just putting some vocabulary to that for your partner, they're then not going to take it personally, and they're perhaps not going to get defensive or get triggered. Something as simple as, you know what? I think I'm protecting myself right now. So defensiveness is something that's letting us know that it's touching on our nervous system. So the goal is to have, less defending, isn't it? More curiosity. I love that word. Be curious. Something that can be really helpful is if you find yourself being defensive, perhaps in a quiet moment later, ask yourself, why am I being so defensive? Am I particularly tired? Have I not been filling my cup up? Is there something coming up that's on my mind that I'm worried about? Sometimes we don't realise big celebrations could create a bit of turmoil. Also, you may have had someone who's passed and their birthday's coming up, or it could be Christmas, which is painful for you, or Easter. All of this is all about being curious. Okay, I'm being defensive. Why am I being defensive? And something I haven't added, don't say to your partner, oh, you're being defensive. Stop it. No. That isn't going to go down well. That actually could be taken as being critical. You know, the Gottmans talk about a soft startup. If you've got a particular topic that perhaps you know your partner may be defensive on, is having a soft startup. Your tone, your speed, how you say it. Instead of, you said that you were going to pick up the milk on the way home and you didn't, and now I've got to go out and get it. I mean, I've just sort of pulled that out of my head now. Hey, earlier you sort of mentioned that you're going to bring some milk home. It'd be really helpful to let me know if you can't, or when you realise that you haven't brought it, to just let me know. I want to be kept in the picture. I mean, of those two examples, would you say that the second one's got a softer startup? Look, it's probably not the most ideal example, but you get what I'm saying. And honestly, so much of the breakdown of communication and the arguments that you're having will be in how you broach the subject, and having a soft startup can help enormously. Lowering your tone. Tone speaks volumes. If you've got a authoritative principal, teacher, police person tone, if you're on the receiving end of that and you've had a tough day and you hit up against that, there's a part of you, you're going to get defensive. So really what I'm trying to express in this podcast, because I listen to podcasts a lot and I know I only take in the tiniest of information out of all of it, which is very normal, is to pick what you're going to focus on. Because ideally it's about being kind. Because to be able to create emotional safety is the key in a relationship, wouldn't you say? So I want to come back to the Gottmans, these leading researchers. They identified 4 communication patterns that predict relationship breakdown. And the 4 patterns are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Each one has an antidote. Healthy relationships aren't conflict-free. You're going to have conflict. And if you don't, well, that's actually unhealthy. However, the healthy relationships that have conflict, they know how to repair. So I would love you this week. My challenge to you this week is to notice your walls. So the next time that you become defensive, just pause, take a breath and go, I'm noticing I'm becoming defensive. So this is what I do. And this one sentence can completely change the direction of a conversation. So if you'd like to understand the Gottmans 4 horsemen and more importantly learn the antidotes that create healthier communication, I have a free relationship guide that walks you through each one. So simply get in touch and I'll happily send you a copy. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. Particularly if you're on YouTube listening to this, leave a review. Share it with someone who wants to create more connection, closeness and trust in their relationships. So thank you for joining me on the Empowered Marriage Podcast. I hope today's episode has given you something to reflect on and something to practice and something to take back into your relationship. So remember, change, it doesn't happen overnight. It really doesn't. It's just one conversation, one choice, one moment of awareness at a time. And every relationship is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself, because the power of change is within you. And thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.